When the Giants come to town, it's bye, bye, baby. Every time the chips are down.
So look at this. You have got to see this ring. I'm telling you. How about that?
That's just kind of a smattering of applause out there. I think there might be
How about the Giants? Give them a hand. Here, come on.
There might be some Dodger fans out in that
Yeah,
crowd.
I know. Well, so that please, that's one of the problems with baseball, is there are 30 teams.
Yeah.
And when you bring a whole national group together, I think all 30 teams are represented here in the room. So, yes, there we go. There.
You know what usually follows that in our region is another word. It starts with S and ends with K, but I won't say it from up here. Good luck against the A's today.
Oh, geez. This is going to be a heck of an interview. We've just started right down the hill. But, look at the size of that ring. That's why you can't wear all three of them. It's just too big. Taking the ballpark and leveraging technology, it's clear that, the Giants are a leader in digital transformation. How has your organization stayed at the forefront of technology over the last 20 years?
Well, I appreciate, the kind words and the compliments, and that is something we think about a lot, because when you're building a new ballpark, the next new one will be the Rangers, and there's on the horizon perhaps right here in Phoenix with the Diamondbacks hoping to build a new ballpark, and the Rays and some others. When you're building a new ballpark, if you're not the most technologically advanced ballpark or stadium ever built, then you made a mistake, because you had a huge budget and you have the opportunity to start from scratch and leverage all the latest technologies. The real challenge is to stay there for 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And at this point, AT&T Park has been around 20 years, and we opened in 2000, so next year will be our 20th season, and we're at the midpoint of all of baseball. So half of the parks in baseball were built after us and half before. So we still consider ourselves a new ballpark, but really we're middle-aged at this point. And if we were in Atlanta, which was built in 1996, the Olympic Stadium there, we would be tearing it down next year and starting fresh, because that's what Atlanta did, 20 years. That was the useful life of that ballpark. We hope ours will be a little bit more like a Wrigley or a Fenway, or maybe even a Yankee, which lasted a while. But it sticks around for a long time. And so what's the secret? I think, in terms of staying on the leading edge and innovation, it's a top-bottom thing for us. It starts from the top with our ownership group, and we're not owned by one wealthy owner. We have 30 wealthy owners that own us, and a lot of them, made their fortunes in technology and are there in the Bay Area. So they recognize the strategic value that innovation brings to us as an organization, and then it comes from the bottom up also with our fans. And a lot of our fans in the Bay Area, they're early adopters of technology. They work in the technology field, so they expect and demand us to be on the leading edge at AT&T Park. So we can never rest, and especially from a communication perspective, when they come to the ballpark, they got to be able to stay in touch. For us, last but not least, it's really kind of part of our culture and our mission statement, and it's been like this since I joined 20 seasons ago. Our mission is we're dedicated to enriching our community through innovation and excellence on and off the field. And I don't know how many baseball teams, have a mission statement. I happen to know the Yankees' mission statement. For whoever that New Yorker back there was, yelled it. The Yankees' mission statement is to win the World Series every year. I don't know.
East Coast, West Coast. East Coast, West Coast.
I don't know when the last time they achieved their mission was.
Oh, boy.
It's been a while.
Oh, boy.
They did it 28 times. They did it a lot of times. But
Yeah.
It's been a while. It's been a while. But for us, innovation is core, right there in our mission statement, and that drives all of us.
You're pretty unique. Not only you are the CIO of a Major League Baseball team, but you also serve as a board chairman for a minor league team, the San Jose Giants. So in one sense, you're up here. In the other sense, you're taking it from everybody. So what does the role really? How does it really kind of shape the business decisions? Because you're unique. You have the corporate responsibility of this, but on the other side, you're running the IT organization and the strategic plan for a business. So that's a pretty unique position that you sit in. How does that kind of drive your decision making?
Yeah, I guess I'd answer that first by talking about how it happened. What happened was we had a CEO in San Jose, our high single A affiliate, and he left suddenly to go work for the Warriors, and we had just bought that franchise. And so now we didn't have a CEO, but we also had a goal of really integrating that business with our business in San Francisco and having them be aligned, even though the ticket prices down there are less than 1/10 of what ours are in San Francisco, and it's very different. You know, we're really kind of a community asset there, fun, affordable family entertainment, you know, 4,000 fans instead of 40,000 fans. But the goal was to really integrate that with our business operations in San Francisco. And so our chairman in San Francisco said, okay, who are we going to put in place? We got to put somebody in place quick. Who are we going to put in place to help us achieve that goal of integrating San Jose across the whole operation with San Francisco? And they looked at a lot of different executives. They're like, okay, this guy, well, he lives up in Marin. That's not convenient. He lives out in the East Bay. Bill, where do you live? Okay, you live in Los Altos. That's like halfway between San Francisco and San Jose. Perfect. And then, but they also said, you know, as the CIO, you're someone who touches all aspects of our business in San Francisco. And so you're probably well qualified to go down there, talk to the ticketing people, the operations people, the technology people, sponsorship people, all of them, and connect the dots because you have those relationships in San Francisco. So I think that's one of the reasons they chose me, other than the geographic desirability factor. And what it brought to me, I think, is, and I've always kind of been this way, if you guys try to talk too deep in the technology with me, my eyes will glaze over, not quite as fast as my CEOs, but relatively fast. And so I've always been kind of a business-minded CIO, trying to think about, you know, what's the end game here? What's the goal of implementing the technology? And so I think my experience in San Jose brought that even more, that I have to be focused on business objectives first, right, technology second.
You know, it's kind of interesting. I know that I can imagine being at that staff meeting. It's usually the person who made eye contact is the one who,
Didn't put the finger on the nose, not it.
Yeah, it's just, everyone else is looking like they're busy, and that job comes up. No, you're going to do that. You know, how do you balance the communications and collaboration needs of all your stakeholders? You know, I can imagine you've got, on one side, you've got fans, on one side, you've got owners, and everybody, you know, you've got so many different, you know, coaches, players, egos, everything that you got to deal with. How do you balance that for the communications and collaboration needs?
There are no egos in baseball.
No egos in baseball. Oh.
No, as I was watching you talk earlier today, a couple of things resonated with me, and the concept is deskless workers, right?
Yeah.
So when we think about who we're serving, we can kind of categorize them. You got your fans, you got the baseball side of the house, which could be players, coaches, scouts, minor leagues, and then you got the business side. And, you know, how do you prioritize those? Okay, first of all, the fans always come first, and that's how we think about it and how it needs to be. So we've had a good run at the ballpark, another year, over 3.2 million tickets sold at AT&T Park, and 30,000 season ticket holders for probably, I don't know, as long as I can remember, for many years. We went 530 straight sellouts, and how do we do that? Communications with those fans is key, and one-to-one communications. And I know, you know, you and Wes talked about the success we've had. We've had some success. The last couple of years, you didn't talk a lot about that. You didn't come up and say, everyone, welcome the CIO of the San Francisco Giants, who went 5-21 in September this year. Give it up for Bill. But that's the reality. It's the reality. It was a rough ending this year. And the last year, we'd lost almost 100 games. We don't talk about, speaking on a softer tone there, but, so.
Well, there's always one.
Was that the same person, or just a lot of different Yankee fans?
I think we got one.
Yeah, I recognize the accent. Anyway, so this year we lost 89 games, and I don't even know where I was going with that. But in terms of our fans, we still have 30,000 season ticket holders, and this offseason we've talked about, you know, we were able to retain them after a 98-loss season, but this season we're talking about, you know, what should we do? Should we hold these big town halls and events? Should we do this big hayride thing at the ballpark to show the value of their investment in us? And we decided, you know what we need to do? With those 30,000 fans, we need to reach out to each of them one-on-one and touch them individually and let them know that we're listening and hear them out, because most of them will want to vent after the season we just had. So communications is huge for us with our fans. That's first and foremost. Next comes the baseball side, and those guys are all deskless. And yeah, there may be some egos there, but those guys are really a challenge to serve because they need immediate response. And when they've got a problem, you got to drop everything for them, and they need to stay in contact wherever they may be in the U.S. You think of a baseball team, they're traveling city to city, but also we got scouts all over the world, and we've got a Dominican academy. or we got to communicate with them too. So that communication framework and network is huge for them. And then last, you have the business folks, which you would think would be the easiest, because those people all do have desks. You know, 200 folks who travel, 250 who travel, and that's the baseball side, 250 on the business side. They all have desks. But I was thinking about it as you were talking. In my IT staff alone, I have 2 folks who don't sit at their desks. They're remote. And we're not talking about the traditional offshore developers. My head of development, head of baseball development, he lives in Dodger territory down south. And one of my leaders in terms of network infrastructure and project management, he lives half-time in Marseille, France. And that would not have been possible a few years ago without the communication capabilities we have today.
That's great. Well, you know, I'm going to ask you just one last question, and it's, you know, when you're setting the IT strategy and priorities, you know, how far in advance are you planning for the ball club?
I'd like to say I'm planning, you know, a year in advance, 3 years in advance. We got this nice 3 to 5 year plan. Yeah, that's not happening. I mean, I can look out, I mean, in massive capital infrastructure. Right. Like, okay, I need a new scoreboard. I'm going to do that in about 10 years, or new audio system, new network infrastructure. The big things you can see out a few years. But realistically, we do most of our planning in the off season for the coming season. And so you can't look that far ahead. Things are changing too fast. We do it by talking to all the different business units. We hope they come to us proactively in advance, but they won't. So we have to make an appointment, go to them during the off season and say, okay, and we'd love to do it during the season. Say, okay, you guys, what are you thinking about for next season so we can start preparing? And they're like, Bill, it's the season. We're not thinking about next season. We're thinking about this season. Okay, so now it's October. The season just ended. I give them a break. But then in another month or so, I say, okay, now what are you thinking about for next season? Like, well, we should be thinking about that, shouldn't we? And so I try to extricate it from them. And I get about 75%, and we prioritize all that. And then we get to work during the off season. And then it comes March, a month before the season, and they come back to me and say, you know, when we talked back in November, we hadn't thought about this, this, and this, which we all need to get done by opening day. Can you guys jump on all these things for us? So that's kind of how, that's the real world.
That's great. You know, if you think about where we're going as a company, this whole move to applications is so key, and it's because you can bring applications up quickly. The days of that long-term planning, yeah, they've got to plan a record, but, you know, life happens. And I've talked with many different CIOs, and the reality is everybody wants it yesterday, once they finally determine what they want. You know, I really appreciate you. If you ever have a chance, doesn't matter what kind of fan you are, their ballpark is absolutely beautiful. It's on the waterfront down there in San Francisco, and I'll tell you, it's I've been to a lot of parks. It's one of the nicest in the U.S. Absolutely.
Yankee fan? What? Yankee fan, can you stand up wherever you are? I know there's only one of you. There she is. Yeah, Yankee fan, have you been to our ballpark? Awesome. And did you? How does it compare to Yankee Stadium?
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you, Bill. All right. Thanks. I really appreciate it.